Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're going to be going over a different little thing. We're going to be doing a different little video. We're going to go do what I think is going to be the meta or the tier list for the meta going into Indianapolis regional. The regional I think happens May 4th or 5th, one of the two. And it might be both. I might be exactly right. But either way, this is what I think is going to be the best decks going into that format, or at least going into that regional. Before we start though, yes mom, I did make my bed-ish, so you can stop texting me about making my bed, please. It's every day I put out a video, you have something to say, so please stop. Yes, my mom watches my videos, and she's very proud, and she also thinks I'm a slob. So let's get into it. We'll start with what I think is best deck in format and just get it out of the way. Obviously, it's Charizard. Charizard and Pidgeot combo, whether it's Tord's list, whether it's the 7 energy list, whether it's the with Jirachi or not, it's the best deck in format. EUIC, Perth, Orlando, I think there were 2 of them in top 4 at Sao Paulo Regional. It's just the best deck in format, and there's really no arguing with it. Its results speak for itself. And then we've got Espathra. Espathra, I think, is C tier, but depending on how many Charizard we see and how many Moon we see, I think Espathra has a chance to go pretty far. We're going to see a couple in day 2, I think. I don't imagine we'll see any in, say, like top 32 or top 8, but I do think we're going to see a couple Espathra in day 2. I think it just needs the right matchups. I think it's almost there. I don't know exactly what it needs. I mean, you could probably argue putting in a Mewtwo EX, but it all just kind of depends on the meta at the time and your RNG. But I don't know that it's any higher than B tier against the other decks in the format other than, say, Moon or Charizard. Moving on, we've got Blocklax. I hate this deck. I do. I hate stall decks. I don't think they're fun. I don't think they're fun to play against. But being objective, I do think it will go far. With the right pilot, you'll see a couple in day 2. You'll see a couple in the top 8 going into day 2. I think you might see one in the top 10 players going into day 2. It'll probably have a record of 7-1-1, or it'll have a record of 8-1-0 or 8-0-1. I think somebody, the right pilot, will be able to take Blocklax far. I don't think we see it in top 8. I think we see it in top 32, but I don't think we see it in top 8. I don't think we see it in the top cut. Next, we've got Shinpao, A tier, plain and simple. To me, it feels like it's just missing something. It is A++ and S-. It is genuinely right in the middle, as far as I'm concerned. It is right there, but I do think it's A tier. It's great. It is a great deck. And now that it doesn't have Path to the Peak in its way, and it's got what it needs, and it's got Irida that just does exactly what it needs. It's right there. Without Pidgeot, Arven would just be a lesser Irida, and that's kind of where I feel Irida shines and this deck shines. I really do think it's S-, A++. It is right between S and A. But if it can win the regional, I will bump it up next time to S tier, but I haven't seen the results yet. Great Tusk, honestly, it's D tier. A good player can play around your Great Tusk and not really worry about it. Using their super rods correctly, using their pal pads correctly, just being able to use their resources correctly, and as long as they don't get milled away, a good player is going to be able to work around Great Tusk fairly easily. Do I think it'll make day 2? I think we'll see 1 or 2 in day 2. They'll be towards the bottom of day 2, but I think we'll see 1 or 2 in day 2. But it'll be more a case of the pilot and not the deck. But if you want to play Great Tusk, go for it. It's fun. It's a regional. There is, if you don't have the points or you're not going for points and you just want to have the experience, take a really fun deck and just see how far you can go. Guardy, I think, is A tier. It lost Shining Arcana. It lost, it lost some of its power, but it's still there. It's always present. I don't think it's S tier anymore, but I do think it's A tier, and I do think we will see it in top 8. I think we might see 1 in top 8. It has the potential to go top 4. Guardy is strong, and with the right pilot, and even with a mediocre pilot, I do think it's A tier and can go far into day 2. Even with a mediocre pilot or a middle-of-the-road pilot. Mediocre is not a diss on anyone. It is just maybe you don't have the experience of, say, a Red Slav or a Tord or any of those guys. Those are the top players. But I do think it's A tier. It's right there. Moving on to Pidgeot Control. I think either way, Pidgeot or Lax, I think it's still B tier. I think it really does come down to the pilot and not necessarily the deck itself. I know I couldn't take these to day 2. Like I'm not a control player. I could never take either one of those to day 2. I would be stuck down in the ranks of a 2-4-2 and just drop the 9th round. But that's me. I'm not a control player, but I do recognize that a control deck with the right player, the right pilot, can go pretty far. I would say it's better than Block Lax because it's more flexible, but I don't know that anybody could just pick it up and go with the deck. Next we have Dino Box. Honestly, I know it went day 2 and got 2nd place at Orlando, and that's great. I think it is truly the pilot, not the deck on that one. And I know I say that a lot, or have said that a lot in this video, but I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan at all of this deck. I've played it. I've had to re-record like 3 times the video that hasn't even released yet. I'll probably re-record it a 4th time just because it is just not a good deck to me. It will make day 2, but I'm not a fan. I don't think it's good. I think it is C tier. Palkia and Goldengo, I think, is B tier. I'll admit, I was one of those people that said Palkia is not good in Goldengo, and I'll eat my hat on that one. I'll eat crow. It is better than I said it was, and I do think that it's going to be good going into the Indianapolis Regional, especially now that, again, very much like Shinpao, we don't have Path to the Peak, and that really shuts off Goldengo. Other than Fluttermane and the one Goldengo inactive, it doesn't have its ability shut off. It still has Greninja. It still has the 2 or 3 that you might have on the bench. It still has Palkia's V-Star ability. It's good. And I think with Temporal Forces, it got 1 or 2 upgrades that help it go from C tier to B tier and even B plus. Not quite A for me, but I do think, I will admit that we see quite a few in day 2. Where in day 2, I don't personally know. I can't think off the top of my head of where I would imagine a bunch of them would be, but I'll know we'll see them in day 2, and I think it's a decent deck to play in this meta because it can hit the Charizard, it can hit the Pidgeots, it can hit the Guardies, and just keep going. I'll admit it. It's a decent deck. Arctina. It's... You could interchange Arctina and Dango Palkia. You really could. I mean, these two could just... They're right there. We always see Arctina in day 2. It's a staple. More than one person is going to make day 2 with Arctina. Does it go far? How much do we see it? I don't know. But Arctina is always there. I think it's right on the cusp. I do. I think it's right on the cusp of being A tier. I don't know if it needs anything, but I know that it's right there, and it could go pretty far. And then we've got Lost Tina. Honestly, I think Lost Tina is S tier with Charizard. I do. I think it's the one deck that really does like compete with Charizard and go, okay, well, here's what's going to happen. You know, running Max Belt to one-hit a Charizard, then using the V-Star attack to knock out another Charizard, and then boss up the Pidgeot to knock out and for win. It has a good prize race and good prize map against Charizard. It is a lost variant, so it does need a higher skill player, not anywhere near, you know, a Tord or anybody like that. But it needs a decent player. I'm not a good Lost Box player personally. I know how to. I don't know that I could win a tournament with it, just because I don't know how to make those calls. But Moist Depression, a person you have maybe heard on live streams, he could, given the right RNG, he could go day 2 very easily with this deck. No questions asked. I think he does a really good job, and I do think it's S tier. Future Hands, you know, I think Future Hands is B tier. I think if it gets just a little bit more support, if it gets just a little bit more energy movability or recovery, something that allows it to do what it needs to do, I think it very easily could be A tier. I do. I like Future Hands. I like it way more than I like Dino Box or Ancient Box, however you want to call it. I like Dino Box. But I don't think it's quite broken the ceiling of A tier. I don't know that it's good into Zard. A Zard player will allow you to take the one Pidgeot that he has. He won't play it again because that's another 2 prize card liability. He might not play a 3 card liability. He'll make sure not to play the Rotom or the Luminion. A good Zard player will play around Future Hands and be pretty comfortable with that matchup. I don't think it's A tier yet, but I think Twilight Masquerade might be able to bring out the beast that Future Hands could be. Lastly, we have Moon, and I'm going to throw it in C tier. Roaring Moon before rotation was a beast, and I slept on it. I've been trying Moon, and I'm not convinced that it's going to go far. With the right RNG, with the right luck, it'll make day 2. I don't know that it on its own can crack day 2 as a deck with a middle pilot. I think it takes the right pilot with the right luck to get day 2. I don't think it's going to be one of the decks you see in top 32. I don't even think it'll make top 64, honestly. Yeah, that's the best way I could put it, is just... it's not an exciting deck. It's not a deck that I think really goes far. I don't even know that it's better than Dino Box, because it wants to be Dino Box, but it also wants to go quickly and use Roaring Moon EX. Yeah, I don't know that we see it in... I honestly, I would be surprised if we saw it in top 64. And I mean that. I would be very surprised if we saw Moon in top 64. We might, and I will eat my hat. I will absolutely retract those statements. But overall, I think that's where it belongs. This isn't C tier. But there you go. That's what you've got. This is my tier list going into the Indianapolis Regional. If you like it, tell me. If you don't like it, tell me. If you disagree completely with Great Tusk being in D tier, let me know. Just tell me in the comments. If I missed a deck list that you would like to see, tell me. If you want to share your own tier list with me, absolutely share it in the comments. I think this is an objective look. Even if I am not the best at predicting metas, I do think that this is what we see. But yeah, anyway, if you would, like, share, comment, subscribe, do all the things that help YouTubers YouTube. And with that, have fun, stay safe, I love you.